Hey y'all, today we are talking about a deep dive into coaching relationships that help set you up for 5-figure months. I am super excited to talk about this today. I've had this on deck for months and this finally just felt like the right time. So we are going to dive into that. And even if you're not a coach or you're not looking for a coach, like the crux of this is about building relationships because that's what business is. So this is for anyone. So don't take this as a oh, that's not for me conversation. Like this is literally for everyone because it's about building relationships, which is about what business is, based on. So before we dive in and get started, happy Wednesday. If you are in the line of the storm, I'm sending you some love and some prayers. In Mount Pleasant, South Carolina, just did some school pickups for half day. We are getting dumped with rain and all that stuff. So we shouldn't have it too bad, knock on wood, but we have tons of beautiful trees in our neighborhood, but they do cause some problems sometimes when we have wind and rain. So sending you prayers to all of you that you're safe and just so grateful that we have this dry house and just so grateful for this moment and still, having internet and electricity and all that. So I hope you are safe. And if you're catching on, say hi. I want this to be supportive to you. Ask your questions, comments, anything, drop it here. Because that's what we're here for. So, if you are in, Charleston County, kids just started back to school. I was talking about this last week. Last Wednesday was their first day. Today it hasn't been a full week, but I went to their back to school night last night, and I just was sitting there and just reminded of when I first went to the school 5 years ago. This is a charter school. My daughters were like ages 2 and 1, and I was sitting there just like, oh my gosh, I want them to go to this school when they're old enough. And, over the past 5 years, it's been like a journey to get here. But just sitting there last night with all the teachers and the back to school information, I was just like so grateful. Like, oh my gosh, like this moment, like I remember sitting here 5 years ago and wanting to be here, and we were here. So it was just like a really great moment and just was really good. So that's kind of what's going on here. So they're home today. I've got 3 kids home and a dog who have been trapped inside. So hopefully everyone's having some quiet time doing their own work. So we're just going to roll with this today. So thank y'all. Normally these live streams are every Wednesday at 12, but this week I was able to push it to 12:30. I typically have a 1 o'clock session, but they had to reschedule because of the storm and getting on flights and all the things. So we're just moving things around. So thanks for being flexible. Thanks for being here. Thank you for catching the replay. I know there's a million places you could be, so I'm really grateful to that. So let's dive in. And y'all, I just have to say, I know we have some new people here. I'm Jordan Ilderton. I'm going in my 8th year of business, which is wild to me because I've seen people recently who've been celebrating their first year in business, and like that feels so long ago, yet it feels like yesterday for me. When I was in my first year of business, I had 2 kids under 2. So I don't even really think that I noticed I was in my first year of business. I was just like, had 2 kids under 2, working during nap times and night times. I, had 3 kids during this journey, and each of them stayed home with me for about 2 years. So I worked with kids at home, like 1 to 3 kids at any given time for many years. During COVID, during lockdown, my husband was considered an essential worker. He was still working more than full time. I have been through 2 recessions with this business. I have built, I built my business to multi 6 figures with kids at home and nap times and night times. And so I have really been in this space, been through the gamut. And so I feel like I have a lot of value to bring, especially with this conversation. I've navigated a lot. Like basically, if you can think of it, I've been there in terms of, people saying yes and never responding back, or of people who, I've had to fire clients, I've had to fire a team. People have just opted out of our containers, like I've had all these iterations of things. Like I've been through basically everything to support my clients. And even I can support my clients with things that I haven't been through. So it's not saying that that is the case, but I have been here 8 years, basically makes me a grandma. And I have a ton to share. So we're going to dive into that today because, basically this is a topic I feel like, isn't talked about a lot. So it makes sense to talk about this now, especially because we are changing our brand in September. Right now we are Ilderton Bookkeeping and Advisory. We are going to change to Ilderton Bookkeeping and Coaching. This is something I'm drawing a line in the sand. I'm letting everyone know this is coaching. This is one-to-one coaching. So we'll talk about that and dive into that. So we're kind of like taking this from multiple perspectives of like me as a coach, and then also I pay for my own coaching and get my own one-to-one support. So that's also something I want to share from that perspective as well. And something I see so often, I talk to a lot of business owners, obviously my clients, and I do free 10K content strategy audits. So I'm talking to people who are very new in business, who are trying to get their first clients. Some of my clients are trying to get their first clients. And just talking to people, it's just so obvious that like the online space has you believe that you're missing something, that there's some secret out there that you're missing, or that you just need to pay someone, and if you get it, then like everything is fixed. And that's just not the case. Like I had a call this week. They were a brand new business owner, a bookkeeper, and when we got on the call, her homework and the call that I had to her was to really figure out who she's speaking to, who is her audience, get to know them, who they are, all that stuff. And a couple days later, she came back and was like, oh, I found this free summit, and the first video was exactly what we talked about. And I'm like, lo and behold, it's like, yeah, this is basic marketing. And first of all, the free summit is a conversion event. So let's call it what it is. This is a conversion event. They're going to sell to you at the end. So just keep that in mind. And this is all basic business stuff. Like no one is saying anything new here. All these fundamental pieces of business are just tried and true business pieces. Like if you start doing enough free events or free live streams or free templates, like they're all going to tell you the same thing, which is great because it just kind of reiterates what we know we should do. And it's sorry, I'm getting text messages, and it's frustrating because you're like, yeah, I already know that, yeah, I got that, but the online space will just keep selling you that next thing. And so this is why I want to talk about coaching and one-to-one, and why being with someone is so powerful, and it's literally the thing to get you the results you want. And we can just talk about it in terms of your business, supporting your clients, like building those relationships, because that's what's going to get your clients the results that they want. And really the online space does not want you to be with someone for the long haul. They don't want you to go all in on yourself and build relationships with one person. So my clients are seeing me step into this new coaching role. I've been working with a lot of them in more of a coaching manner versus advisory. And so they're really seeing this, like we're digging into the change, they're feeling more natural. And it's not just like I'm showing up like as an advisor of like, here's these reports and here's these spreadsheets and here's all this. Because if you know me, my background is accounting, it's numbers, it's data. I love that part. And with the advisory services, I very much kind of felt like a dancing monkey. Here's all your reports. But with the coaching piece, it's literally more like this is stuff that we're doing together. And so I still use the data and numbers. I'm one of those coaches that really knows that piece and knows how to navigate QuickBooks and Google Analytics 4 and can dive into that part. So we're definitely like using it to support their strategy, but it's just really helping us tweak their strategy. So we're using it in tandem with everything else we're doing, because I really see this coaching piece that I'm stepping into. I'm seeing my clients and their business as just a whole person with a heart. They're not robots. Saying advisory services just felt so buttoned up. And now that I've been working with some of my clients for years now, they've renewed multiple times. They can let their hair down and they can get real, and we can talk about like real things going on in their business. So, I've got client case studies on my website, so feel free to check those out. But those are really, where I can go deep and still keep things confidential. But those are super helpful for people because I know a lot of the things that my clients struggle with are things that everyone else is struggling with. Like it's not just, what's personal is universal type of thing. So those are super helpful if you want to check those out. But the reason I have such great relationships and so many renewals and have worked with people so long is because I know my clients and I know their business. Like that's literally my job, is to know them and their business. So I have their back, I'm in their corner, and I know their tendencies. I lovingly tease them about it. I can see patterns that they want to gloss over, or they want to ignore, or they want to be like, no, I just need a new strategy, or I just, have the wrong audience, or I just need my offer to be better. And literally it's usually like, no, that's fun. Our brain wants us to think that and go down this rabbit hole. And we can think our brains and be like, oh, that's so cute. Like you want me to go down this strategy rabbit hole. That's when people go down the rabbit holes of, I need to learn how to do reels. I need to learn how to do Facebook ads. I need to learn how to do Pinterest, like all that stuff. But it's really like, no, you probably are doing the right strategy. You're just leaving off certain areas, or we just need to close the right gap or find the biggest opportunity here. Where's the kink in the hose? And so really knowing them is what helps get the biggest results. So we'll talk about some of the things that my clients go through. So that is imposter syndrome. I might do a whole live stream around that because that is just so prevalent with my clients, on free calls, with me. I mean, we all deal with imposter syndrome, especially in the online space, seeing everything that everyone else is putting out there. We also go deep with my clients around anxiety around money, debt, spending money, having money, holding money, the tendency to want to go all in on something and go really hard and then want to pull back, or they want to wait till everything is wrapped in a bow and everything's perfect and the email sequence is perfect before they go out and start doing it, or they think they need more information, or they keep questioning their enoughness and their worthiness to have what they want, or they keep wanting to focus on strategy and just like ignore the mindset is the real thing. So these are all things that my clients, in a different container, they could just hide all of that stuff. And I lovingly say to my clients, like, they can't hide from me. Like, it sounds kind of creepy, but it's true. Like, they do get uncomfortable, and I give them so much credit because it would be easier to be an intensive. So recently I was talking with someone about an intensive, and it was around raising prices. And honestly, I said that was not the place to do an intensive. So an intensive is an hour of support with me, and then they get a full 7 days of follow-up. And I see so many programs that offer that. So many free programs, paid group programs. I'll share my experience with a group program around that, but so many group programs that tell you like, oh, you should raise prices. Here's the offers you should have. You should tweak these, your product suites, and like they show you what's possible and they get you inspired and you're like, I can do all this, and the fancy results, but like they aren't usually there to support you on the back end. And so that's why I was telling this, potential client with an intensive, like I would not feel comfortable doing that on an intensive because that really needs long-term support, because there's a ton of stuff that comes up after that. You're probably going to get a slew of objections because you're raising your prices. You're having to navigate how to have those objection conversations. You're getting a much lower conversion rate, which can be super uncomfortable. And you have to kind of navigate like, okay, how much am I willing to get no's versus increase my prices? And so you can have these hard and fast rules like, okay, I'm going to do this. But when you're actually in it and you're getting no after no or objection after objection, and you're seeing your revenue go down and you're stuck in this place where you've made a change and like nothing is working, that is so uncomfortable. And that is just such a disservice to not have someone there supporting you with that. So I would never sell someone on an intensive for something like that. And I'm very honest about who I work with and whether I think it's the right fit. And so like this other call that I had with someone last week, when she saw that group program or the conversion event, and I'm just like, okay, like that's great if that's helpful to you, and like make sure that program has the support for when you're getting all the objections and when things get really uncomfortable and when you're sitting there without results and like no one's saying yes yet to these higher prices, because you're also not comfortable, or you're wondering if you're worthy, or if you're kind of like agreeing with their objections. Like there's all these things that come up. And so having that one-to-one support is literally like what is going to help you through that. So for me, it really slowed me down with that group program that I paid $9,000 for, because I ended up not using any of the tactics that they told me to. I had to recreate my whole offer, what felt aligned to me, how I want to roll this out. Like they were telling you to get payment over the phone. Like I wasted a lot of time and a lot of money, like on something that I was like, okay, that was kind of helpful, but it actually slowed me down. Whereas if I had just like figured it out on my own in the beginning, like that would have saved me a lot of time and money. So that's something I really want to caution people with. I used this example with her. I was like, I felt like I'd been given like a fancy stick shift car, but no one was sitting there helping me learn how to drive the stick shift. So that's just what I'm saying. Like group programs definitely have their place. Courses have their place. I'm not saying that they don't, but just really be mindful of what you're buying it for, because a lot of times they are just not set up to support you with that one-to-one support. And the reason my clients feel so peaceful, they feel so profitable, and they are so profitable is because I'm literally sitting there with them, and I know their tendencies, and I know what they tend to like to do, and whether, it's kind of pull back when from selling or feeling enough or wanting to chase the next strategy. Like, I'm sitting there kind of like reflecting it to them as a mirror. I am giving them a new perspective. So this is all just stuff that is just so important with relationships. So think about your clients and how you support them and how you can kind of be that mirror, even if you're not a coach, like helping them see what they want and helping them get there. Even if it's not working with you, like just being that person that's not just like trying to sell to them no matter what, but really be that person to like get to know them, make the selling process about them. And that is going to serve them so much better. And then even if they don't buy from you, like they're probably still going to refer people because you took the time to really get to know them, and what they needed and, what served them better. Please let me know if you have questions, comments. Feel free to disagree with me on any of this stuff. Let me know your perspective. This is obviously my perspective behind the scenes, with building my own 20K revenue business and just supporting clients to 5, 6, 7 figures. So another piece of this is we have clients who are 7 figures. We also have clients who are brand new, like just getting started, trying to book their first clients, having their first best fit and discovery calls. And sometimes they just need to borrow my belief until they have their own. So this is very much like a coaching ism. It's not something I came up with, but it's something that I really like to share, because this is just huge, especially when you're starting out. Like, you started a business, it's so exciting. You got the website, maybe the business cards. I don't know if people buy business cards anymore. You got the logo, all that fun stuff. And then it's just like, shit, like reality sets in. You're like, oh, I thought I was going to be making money faster. I thought I was going to have people just hiring me right off the gate. I thought, the online space makes me believe I'm going to be a millionaire in like 2.5 seconds. And like, that's just literally not true. So it's just all that uncomfortableness that you're kind of like start questioning yourself. And so letting my clients be like, I would never work with someone that I didn't believe in 100%. So if they need to borrow my confidence, my perspective, my just, belief in them, like, feel free, they can borrow it as long as they need to. So again, like, that's just a piece that is so important to speak to, because I literally don't work with anyone if I don't believe that we can do amazing work and that they can build like a really super profitable business. Not to say like, oh, that's the only reason I work with people, but like, I wouldn't work with someone if I didn't believe in their business and what they did. I want to be in alignment with them and be excited about their business, as excited as they are about it. So on that perspective, why I keep renewing with my coach. So she knows my tendencies and she knows my habits, and she knows I'm not great at giving myself credit. I always feel like I need to get it right, or I need to do the responsible thing. I'm just sharing this with you so that I am a human being and I work through my own stuff too. I'm very much the typical older sibling type A personality. I feel like I should always be getting it right, and that's just something that, like, if I'm struggling in business, it typically comes back to this. Even if it's not really about business. Like the other week I brought something to our call that was just like, this person in my life is like triggering me. Like, it just, when I'm around them, I just like have all these feelings come up. And so we really like unpacked that, and it really wasn't about that person at all. It was really about like me giving myself credit, me being enough, me feeling like it's okay to want what I want. That's what it really came back to. And it was so nice to see that like it wasn't about that person at all. And then all the interactions with her after that were just so much easier, like, because I'm just like, oh, it's not about her, like it's about me, what I have going on. And not to be like blaming anything, but it's typically when someone is triggering us or when we're having these uncomfortable feelings, it's really showing us what's coming up within ourselves. Obviously people can be annoying and we don't have to like everybody, but it's just very nice to like have this space to process that, because it's something that shows up in business for me and it shows up in my personal life. So I can see that connection everywhere. So these are not easy conversations. I get uncomfortable. I typically have a hanky next to me because I cry very easily. But it does help me immensely, whether it's business related or not, because I am a whole human being. I'm a person. And so if I just focused over here on the business, and if this was like bothering me over here, but I couldn't bring it and voice it, like, that would be so frustrating. So I that's just going to kind of permeate everything I do in business. And so that's what I also like to offer my clients. Like, we will have calls where it's not really about the business, but it ties back to their tendencies. It ties back to what's going on in their life, and that affects their business. So, full permission. I've got clients who cry on our calls, and it's not like I'm trying to make anyone cry, but it's literally just like, this is the safe space to process it and let it out. And then that makes business easier when we've kind of like addressed everything else going on. Because if we ignore this whole other part of us being a human, like, business is just going to get capped. It's just going to get stuck. So it's just so nice to be able to voice that. And that's why I think it's just so important to have like one-to-one support and build these relationships, because in a group program you could hide. Like, I've been in group programs and I've showed up for group coaching, and like, I show up. If I pay for something, I'm going to show up. Like, if I buy a batch of yoga or Pilates classes, like, I'm not missing those. I'm showing up. So I showed up to group coaching, but like, I don't want to get super vulnerable in front of a whole group of people. I don't want to ugly cry in front of like 10 other male accountants, because I don't feel good enough selling, or I don't feel like I'm worthy of this. Like, that is just a great place for me to bring like some surface level problems and keep it surface level, but it's not really getting to the meat of what I'm dealing with. And so that's why I see, like, yes, group coaching they do have the group coaching calls and all that, but like, for most of us, like, we're still able to hide. We can still kind of breeze through it. We can look like a star student because we do all the modules, we show up to the calls, but like, we might not be sharing what's really going on. And so building that relationship with someone is just so valuable. So think about that in your business when you're offering things to people. Like, again, we talked about like, how are you personalizing it? How are you building those businesses or those relationships and making it safe for someone? Because we want people to feel like they can come to us with their objections or anything else. And so that's why with building relationships, if someone gives you an objection, that's kind of amazing, because they feel comfortable enough to tell you what's coming up for them. It would be easier for them to peace out and be like, I don't even want to talk about it. But if someone is bringing their objection to you, like, amazing, use that, because that feels, you've opened that relationship enough for them to feel comfortable with that. So that's another piece of this, is just like leaning into those conversations with people. So again, why I keep renewing with my coach, y'all. I make 20K months recurring revenue. I'm basically full. I pay myself really well. We are going to open a couple one-to-one spots in September just because I want to. Like, I make great money. Those couple spots, like, after team and taxes, like, it's not going to be a ton of money in my pocket. Like, but I just love what I do. And I know that, like, if I have the capacity to serve more humans, like, I definitely want to do it. But like, I just want to keep working with her because things are good. Like, it doesn't mean there needs to be a problem that I'm always trying to fix. Like, right now, my problem or my gap to close is really just like enjoying everything that I've built and seeing like how amazing it is. Like, I haven't updated my vision board. I haven't like made new goals. And if y'all know me, I'm all about new goals and vision boards and affirmations, but really, like, my work right now is really to just like enjoy this. Like, we have an amazing thing going on. I get to just enjoy it and it's all good, but I'm not going to stop. Like, I know that more growth happens because it is so good, and I'm kind of bumping up against like what I thought was possible. And so like, part of my work is to like see that I've made it and that I'm still stretching myself, because literally, like, so many goals recently have come true. Like, the 20K months, we got this golf cart to ride around the neighborhood that I've been wanting for a long time. My kids got into the schools that we've been on the wait list for years. We started getting a cleaner to do our house. I get facials every month. Like, all these things that were like I've made it goals, like, they are here now. And so I'm not tapping out of support right now because I've got all these, amazing things happening. Like, I know a lot of people who would be like, okay, I got everything I wanted. All right, peace out. But like, to me, that is like where even more magic happens, because now I'm bumping up against what I thought was possible. And this is when it's really like, okay, well, like, when I'm ready, I can stretch to that next level, because like, I've acclimated all of this in my nervous system, and that is part of the work too. So that's just something I want to offer when people think that like, oh, I just need to get a coach or work with someone because there's a problem. Like, we can still work with people when things are good, and they're actually so good that they kind of get uncomfortable. Like, if you're familiar with Gay Hendricks and the Big Leap, like, this is a huge thing. Like, it's an actual thing of people wanting to sabotage themselves when things get so good. And so that is part of our work too, whether you're with a coach or we with my coach is just like really acclimating to like how good things can be, especially when we build momentum in our business and we kind of get to that pop moment and it just kind of feels like everything's happening quickly and at once. And so we get that support to still like ground ourselves in and really like acclimate our nervous system. So if you know me and you know anything about my offer, my one-to-one is a partnership, or it's a revenue share. So it's a base rate and then 10% of new revenue. And so I really consider myself like partnering with my clients. Like I am in their business with them. I don't claim to have all the answers. Like these are things that we're doing together. Like I'm not sitting here with like, hey, this is how I built my, 20K months. Here's a 1, 2, 3 step template. Like you need to do the same. Like that is so wildly inappropriate, disempowering. Please run far away from anyone who says you need to do something the way that they did it. I don't want to be their CEO. I'm not their boss. I have been in business for 8 years. I know solid business practices. I know building relationships works, getting in front of your audience, getting in front of other audiences, speaking to your people. Like all of that is just sound business practices. And we are still building their client roster together. We're building their content strategy together. We're still speaking to their audience. They are starting in a different place of business than I am, building their visibility strategy or their team or a new revenue stream. Like we are just acting like scientists and we're just testing and tweaking along the way, because this is not like, here's your science kit that's like your 1, 2, 3 step, grow some butterflies. Like you do this and then 7 days later this happens and then 2 weeks later this happens, then they fly away and you've got beautiful butterflies. Like that is not what this is. This is like the science project where we're literally asking a question. Here's what we think might happen. So let's try these things. We've got the data on the back end to really support whether this is happening or not, or whether we need to tweak something. But this is not something where it's like, I'm showing up and being like, you need to do what I do, and this is what I did. Because honestly, if anyone's showing up doing that, that strategy is probably already old. Like the economy's changing, the algorithm's changing, people are changing how they consume things. Like if someone is selling you something that worked for them, like that was probably 6 months, 1 year, 3 years ago. Like that's just not how you build a business based on something that worked for someone in the past. They had a different audience, they had a different offer, they had a different momentum built before that. Like all of that stuff is just, it's just so wrong in so many ways. But I see people do it all the time because they just want the quick fix. They just want the quick answer of like, how do I get my email list to 1,000, or how to make, 10K in your first year of business. Like we all just want that, like Amazon, it shows at my door, easy thing to do. And that slows us down so much. So what we're doing is we're asking questions, we're getting curious, we're the curious observer, we're looking at the data, we're looking at what our audience is telling us, what worked, what can we get, what can we do more of, what feedback loop can we create so that we can get the data that we need. So this is like what I'm helping them do. I'm helping my clients be adaptable. We're listening to their businesses, we're listening to their clients, their audience. Like all of this stuff is just data that we get to use to help them grow. And this is part of building that relationship. Like if I were sitting there and I'm like, yes, I have all the answers, I can wave a magic wand and you're going to have a 10K month business. Like that's just so wildly inappropriate. And I would never want someone to hire me thinking that that's what they were going to get. So I like to be very clear up front that like, I'm not giving you some 1, 2, 3 step exact process, because it's probably outdated. So run far away from people who are selling that. So if you never had coaching, I'm just putting that in your ear, because coaching isn't like a 1, 2, 3 step done for you process. Like I can promise people that I will show up fully. I will show up 100%, but I cannot promise shiny results. I can show you testimonials on my website. I can show you client case studies. I can show you what's possible for me, for my clients, but like I don't tell my clients what strategy to do. If y'all know me, I am huge on content. I offer a free 10K content strategy audit. This is a free coaching call about your content strategy. We look at it together. It's literally one-to-one support. And I have clients who don't use a content strategy. Like, I know it's crazy, but like, I am not like sitting there like with my clients like, well, I do this, you have to do it. Like that is not what happens at all. So please don't ever think that you need to do something exactly like your coach or who you're following tells you to do, because you need to do what's right for you. So even my clients that don't have a content strategy, they still are replacing it with something else. And it's typically in-person stuff. It's typically showing up to networking events. It's showing up to, what are they called? Like these kind of big events, like vendor events. I'm blanking on the word right now, but they replace it with something else. So even if they don't have a content strategy, they're doing something else that's achieving that same goal. And so that's what's important to me. It's not like, oh, you have to do what I think works and I see it behind the scenes, like content just works. But if that's not the right choice for them in their industry or how they build relationships or what feels good to them, like we are going to do what works for them. In that same note, if someone shows up and they're like, I don't want to do content, then my question is like, why? Like, let's dig a little deeper. I had a client recently that this came up. And it's not like I'm going to have anyone do anything they don't want to do, but I think it was worth digging into a little bit to see what was going on there. So like, we aren't really doing a content strategy for her. So we're talking about other things to replace that. And at the same time, just seeing that like that door isn't totally closed. There's just some things right now that like we are going to work through to get more comfortable with that. But it's not like, I don't want someone to show up and be like, no, that strategy is not working. I'm not doing it. Like, no, because that's always just like, well, it's like a challenge. Like, why? What's going on there? Why are you so against that one? And then if it turns out that's not the right fit, sure thing. But like, we at least need to explore that and dive into that question. And that's just something you're not going to get with someone who's just trying to sell you Facebook ads. So, please don't think you ever have to do anything exactly like your coach, but it is nice to be on the same page. I'm going to say it's not nice. It is a must to be on the same page, to kind of vibe, to have like a good feeling with someone, and knowing that kind of your values and the way you think about business and the way you think about things are aligned. So even though if you don't do things exactly like them, that you still kind of are on the same page with everything. So that's really important to say. And another piece of this is just, as a coach, my job is to ask questions. So like I said, with the person who didn't want to show up on social, I could have been a coach that said, oh, okay, well, you can just do this other thing and go down this whole rabbit hole. And like, that's fine. There's a time and a place for that. But also my job is to get curious and figure out like, why don't you want to show up on social? Like, what's going on there? Like, what's this really about? What's the thing under the thing? Because that's really going to give us a lot of juicy information. Because if we just shut this whole content online thing down, that really limits us, and you're going to have to just go out and do that much more work over here. And some people, that trade-off is worth it. Like I said, I have clients who do that. They don't show up online. And for someone that's like just getting started, like that is a beautiful place to show up and sell. So me asking questions and getting curious and feeling like what was aligned to her, like that all came through questioning. And sometimes I give conflicting advice. Like, I had a couple calls recently where one person was going all in on Facebook, and that was what made the most sense to them. Just ignore Instagram. And another one, we were building up their Instagram. So you could take what I say to certain clients and like it would be conflicting, but it's because it's so personal. You could even take stuff in my content or in these live streams that like for one person would be great, and then for another person, that's not it at all. So that's really what I want to say about that, is just like, so I can think of clients right now, like one of them very much needs a plan and to have everything kind of laid out and thought out. And another one, it's like, my challenge to her is to just do it messy. Like just show up messy, show up and sell, provide the links and just do it. Whereas that's very uncomfortable for her. So it's like, I can tell different clients different things, but it's really tailored to like our relationship and me knowing them and knowing what is going to get the most for them and most results. So it's very personal, very not one size fits all. So think about in your own business as you're building relationships, and how are you curating this like very like, personalized experience for the person in front of you, and communicating that. Another thing is, all my clients are very busy. They don't have time to consume everything out there. They don't have the bandwidth to go do every training and freebie and whatever. So what this one-to-one container does is it consolidates what they need at the time that they need it. I think of it kind of like, fall's coming up. My mother-in-law made a comment the other day. She had like some pots to give us, and she was like, well, now it's not really the time to plant seeds, but you can have these pots anyway. And I really think of it like that, is like, in the winter, it's not really the time to plant seeds to make them grow. And we kind of need to do things when it's the right time for us. So if you take a course or a freebie download, like part of that work may not be the right thing for you at that time. And so with one-to-one work and with building relationships, like you're getting exactly what you need when you need it, instead of being like, hey, I've got like 10 books from Amazon on my desk and I'm trying to consume all of them at once. It's like, okay, I get the one book when I need it, and this is the thing for me. So that's just something to think about with building relationships, is that you're getting what you need when you need it. And how does that serve your clients? How are you giving them what they need when they need it? And how are you communicating that to them? That like, yes, there's like a million other things I have in my back pocket that I could help you. But if I just hand all that to you now, it's going to overwhelm you. So I do that with, my one-to-ones. I have resources and like other things that I can give them. But when they work with me and when they onboard with me, I'm not just like sending it all to them at once. Like I know that these things will come up and I will give them the resource when they need it at that time. And that's really saving them time, because then they're not trying to sift through everything at once. Or if someone goes to my website and they're trying to like consume all my live streams at once, like that is great. But like some of those are going to be the right live stream for the right time. So that's how I really want you to think about that. And these containers that I do are 6 months. And so it would be wildly inappropriate and bonkers to think that you get everything you need within 6 months. So that's why I always let people know there's the option to renew if it's the right fit. But there's always the option to renew, because it's so hard if you feel like you need to get everything out of 6 months. Or people have even asked me like, why not do 3 months? And I'm like, 3 months is just so short. Like you can barely get a strategy up and running. Like y'all know I love the data, I love the numbers, but like if you think you're going to get like some traction on a strategy in like that amount of time, I mean, you might a little bit. 3 months is 90 days, so 60 to 90 days, but it really doesn't give us time to like tweak it. It's like, you just did something once and then you're trying to change it and make it better, where it's like, we just really need to get some like good data so then we can really see and start tweaking. So that's why I do 6 months. And think about in your containers, if you just kind of do like a one-time thing, think about how can you offer something to keep supporting people after that, so that it's not just like, okay, this one thing and bye. Like back when I was doing the bookkeeping, it was like, okay, I can do a cleanup job for someone and get their books caught up and get like whatever mess cleaned up. And then I can support them going forward on a monthly basis to keep everything buttoned up and running smoothly. Like we have so many clients that came to us like that. And because I was able to really support them with a cleanup, messy phase, like then they became, a monthly client that we've been with for years. So think about adding that to your strategy. Like if you're doing like a one-time, I know like with web designers, they do this a lot, like, the one-time design, and then they have a monthly retainer, or, whatever you offer, feel free to drop in the comments or, tell us what you do and we'll kind of brainstorm with you. But thinking about how you can build relationships just past that one thing that you offer. So I want my clients to use their sessions. I want them to show up. I want them to bring their frustrations. Like that's literally what this is for. I know a lot of containers recently, or a lot of coaching, have gotten a bad rap because they don't want people to use their sessions. They kind of discourage that, or they kind of have this like good girl client or whatever, and people don't feel like they can show up. But that's literally not how I am, how I roll. I want my clients to use the sessions. They have like unlimited in-between support. I want them to use it as that feels good to them. So I set really good boundaries so that they don't have to. So that's really important for me. And part of the reason I'm a coach and have a coach is that it helps me show up to my sessions clean. Like I can show up, clean and, not have all this stuff that comes with being a business owner, because there's always stuff that comes with being a business owner. It is the best lesson in personal development other than being a parent. So if you are a parent and a business owner, like it is just like I'm just going to say a shitstorm of like stuff that comes up all the time. Like our buttons getting pressed, our just insecurities getting tapped into. Like we are just like this, like, oh my gosh, this walking like hotspot button that's just like, having things come up all the time. And it is beautiful and amazing. And I wouldn't trade it for the world. And it's still like, I need an outlet for my stuff. Something I've talked about in a live stream before is like my parents were divorced. My mom, was a single mom. I remember in middle school her having a credit card and buying our Christmas presents and putting it on the credit card, and years and decades later that still affected me, so that when I was selling or having conversations with single moms or divorced moms, like that was very present for me, and that feeling of just like what my mom went through and knowing what she went through, like I had like trepidation with selling to people, even though like I realized like I am the perfect person to support them. Like I know how busy they are, I know how precious their time is, I know what they need to look at and what we need to focus on, so like I'm the best person to support them. But I had this like trepidation of selling to them because of that. So all that to say, like I get to show up really clean, I get to sell really clean, I get to have this energy, like I show up for my sessions and check my shit at the door because I've already dealt with it. Like trust me, I go deep. So that's just something that like I really feel like is important to say. Like it's just, I have an outlet for my stuff, I have a container and I use it. So, I wanted to have this conversation today because we are changing our branding as we go forward. I don't know if you follow me on social media or if you're on our newsletter, but you will definitely see it there, Ilderton Bookkeeping and Coaching. I wanted to just have this like deep dive conversation about that and why the change, what goes on behind closed doors, because some people are like, what the heck is coaching? Like with advisory, people kind of have an idea of like, oh, you're kind of like a CFO, and I'm very much like, no. Now I'm just saying I'm a coach. So this was so important to me to have this conversation. So I know we've taken this in multiple areas and multiple side tangents here, but the crux of this, again, is I want to encourage you to see how you're building long-term relationships in your business. So something we talked about before is I let my clients know upfront they can renew with me, and then when they do renew, they lock in their price. So I've had clients with me for years and they are paying a much lower price because they've been with me for years and they locked in that rate. And so I'm going to honor that and I'm going to keep that for them. And so just think about your business of like, okay, what are you building? What container do you have to support them? Maybe if you have like a one-time offer, how are you kind of incentivizing them to work with you and keep building this relationship, and then letting them know like how much it means to you, and keeping that rate in, because it's so important to me to give them that lower rate and be like, I am so grateful that you're here. Like you're not a random person off the street. Like you've been with me, you will lock in your rate. It won't go up. Whereas I've heard of other people that it's just like, oh, my rate went up, here you go. And they're just like, we built this really good relationship and I thought we had this like connection, and then you're just like upping the rate on me. And so think about in your business how you can encourage people, like A, let them know that they can keep working with you, and then B, let them know like, hey, because you're already a client, you're going to lock in this rate, you're going to lock in this service. Like we don't take on new bookkeeping clients anymore, but like anyone who starts with us with one-to-one and adds bookkeeping, like we will definitely keep their bookkeeping. We've got bookkeeping clients we've had for 8 years. And like, I'm not letting them go. I have let bookkeeping clients know go. I will say that, but it's because it wasn't the right fit, not because it's just like, oh, I just am getting rid of you. So we very much grandfather people in that. So think about in your business, like how can someone have a benefit to keep working with you? Because that's what we want to do. Like getting a new client just costs so much more. So if you have people that are renewing with you or continuing on with monthly services, like how can you make that really like feel good to them and let them know like, yes, I can't wait to keep supporting you and this is what it can look like, and like you're going to be like locked in and get this goodie or lower rate because we have a relationship and we've been building this. So really think about that and building relationships in your business. So I know we talked a lot about coaching, building relationships, but really that's been like the fundamental piece of business, and that really it all comes down to like we could spin our wheels downloading the next freebie, everything out there, the next free summit, but it's really about building relationships and figuring out what's the problem to solve in your business right now, because there are so many resources out there, and I know so many people who are new in business, and I honestly was in the online space for like 5 years before I realized I was an online business, and I'm so grateful for that because I had such a strong foundation, because I see people just get so caught up in everything that's out there online. Like it is freaking bananas. And I just want to be such a voice and such an advocate for the fact that like you don't need all of that. You don't need all these crazy strategies. You don't need a perfect funnel. You need something that works for you, and you need someone grounded to support you in that. So that's just really how I want to end it. And, you know, saying that, if you're sitting there and you're like, oh, I feel like I'm all over the place. I feel like I've gotten all these free downloads. I feel like I haven't finished anything that I've started. Like there's always kind of a new thing that I'm chasing. Like I really invite you to book one of my free calls. It's a 10K content strategy audit. We will look at your content strategy, see what gaps you have, what opportunities you have. Really, it's my eyes and brain. It's free coaching in your business. And this is just something I love to do. I really love to hone my coaching skills. I love being good at what I do and like just giving people a shit ton of value for free. Like it feels really good. So I invite you to book one of those calls. We do a couple a week. Like I said, I'm kind of full. I'm not too full, but we are limiting these calls every week so that I can support my clients. But I'll drop the link below. And again, so glad to have this conversation with you. Excited to roll out Ilderton Bookkeeping and Coaching and just claim it and name it and give you the behind the scenes here. So if you're catching the replay, ask your questions, leave your comments. I want to hear from you. Thank you so much for being here. It really means so much to me. And I'll see you next week. Bye.